I'm actually going to get started on time this week, which I know is unusual for me. I don't normally do that, but, you know, hey. So this week I am going to be discussing content creation for authors, which is related to marketing, but isn't strictly marketing. I mean, it is and it isn't at the same time. So I'm going to do my best to try and make this relevant to people who don't yet have a bunch of marketing they're doing, but at the same time are also looking to up their game, because marketing is a big challenge for all of us and can be very stressful. I know it can be for me too, and this is something that I'm actually working on right now, is getting better at content creation so that my various channels and such will actually be able to have content on them and not just, you know, once a month when I maybe feel like something. So, the way that I'm approaching content creation is something that I learned online. Is I'm looking at this as a way to create content as easily as reasonably possible for me, because frankly, content creation is extremely difficult for me and I find it kind of exhausting. So looking at that, because if I look at all of my author platforms, I have Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, I have my newsletter, I have my website, I have my blog. Like, that's an awful lot of platforms for me to try and find ways to make content for every week. Or even more frequently than that, because some platforms, in order to get bigger, you have to post multiple times a day for a while in order to get a following on that platform, which is really frustrating, and it can be really exhausting and kind of overwhelming. So the content creation method I'm testing and that I've seen that I think is really going to be useful is kind of creating things in a more manageable way so that I only have to do the work once. Fee, that is a relevant question for this chat, and I will address that, but yes, I'm going to do that in a little bit. So content, I know, sounds really generic, but when I say content, I mean things for posting on your author social media, whether you have a book out or whether you're working on getting a book out, whatever it is. If you're not quite there yet, cool. But you can, it's never too early to start developing a relationship with people on social media, and I've talked about that a lot. So the method that I'm looking at using is kind of taking long form content and also turning it into short form content. So this week I'm doing an experiment. I have my blog post that I've written out. I'm going to turn that blog post into a YouTube video by using that blog post as a framework from which to make the video. It's going to be on the same subject. Then I'm going to take pieces of that video and turn it into 5 to 7, maybe 15-second segments that I'm going to share as reels on TikTok, or reels on Instagram, and as posts on TikTok, and as well as I can use that for Twitter content. That's kind of what I'm looking at. Is I'd like to do my writing of the content once. So for my blog, I wrote 16-ish hundred words on the subject that I'm working on this week, which is why perfection is soul killing for creatives. So I wrote that, and now I'm doing this talk. This talk is going to be going live on my channel, though it's not on that subject, but it is going to be going live. But I'm also going to be making a YouTube video on that subject that is not going to be here in this chat. I'm going to be making a separate YouTube video because I'm trying to get into YouTube, and from that, I'm going to take segments out and just kind of cut them into chunks and put them up on TikTok and Instagram, and I can also post videos to Twitter and whatever else. I'm going to use my distribution software to get my videos out to all of those sources, which is going to be extremely helpful for me. And since I'm taking a 1,600-word blog post, turning it at about 10 minutes of YouTube time, that'll give me an awful lot of short clips that I could use, assuming I write something tight enough and produce something tight enough on my video that I can just kind of crop it into pieces, and then I can share that through my social media. But I only need to do the bulk of the work as far as creating the content once, because once I'm done writing it, I've created it. It's there. And that is kind of the direction I'm going, because with a lot of these platforms, with Reels and with TikTok, they want you to post 1 to 3 times a day. Now, I bank my content, so I batch create content relatively regularly. I'll make 2 to 5 videos a couple times a week, which I know is not enough to really get big on TikTok, but frankly, I'm not trying to use TikTok as my only driver of sales, I'm fine with slower growth than 3 times a day, because at this point, with my physical situation and my life situation, that would just be too much constant work on my part, and it wouldn't do well for me. I know everyone says you need to do it, but that's just too much. And I think for most human beings who are, particularly those who are on more than one platform, that is just way too much. Because if I'm doing that, when am I going to be writing? So that's a problem. So I'm looking at this flow of work in my current viewpoint, and I think it's going to work very well for me, and I think it might work well for other people, because you do the creation of your idea once. Like, I'm only going to be talking about why perfection is soul-killing in creative activities. I'm going to be talking about that this week pretty much exclusively. And I'm not really going to be talking about anything else. I'm also thinking about taking my YouTube videos and turning them into maybe a podcast. I'm not sure. I have talked about working with a friend of mine to do a podcast, but I haven't quite gotten to that stage yet. And no, not necessarily nid. 1 to 3 times a day is pretty much the standard suggestion for TikTok. If you want your channel to grow and grow quickly, 1 to 3 times a day is how you do it. Now, that granted, I usually post 1 to 2, and they're not normally very long. Like, filming a TikTok video takes me about 5 to 10 minutes if it's not something like that I'm really putting a lot of time, effort, and planning into. If I am putting a lot of time, effort, and planning into it, it might take me longer, but I try not to make videos like that. Usually I use my TikTok for, here's the thing I encountered, I have an opinion about it, all right, let's have this opinion, then I put captions on it and send it, and I'm not going to spend a bunch of time working on it, because that's a nightmare. And now kind of getting into Fee's comment about what the content sounds really generic. Like, content is kind of generic because it's the basic statement of, like, content can be anything. It can be a YouTuber playing video games. Hey, lead. It can be somebody watching, it can be unboxing videos. It can be people making commentary about social things. It can be about a million different things. So content is a generic term, but that's because it is the same term for everybody. We're all making content. And so yes, it is a generic thing. Now, for authors, our content is going to be specific. So one of the things that I'm getting into all of this is that I spent some time doing, and I did it last night, and I'm going to keep working on it, is I created content buckets for myself. These content buckets are content that I'm going to be writing about and producing media of various different kinds about, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, making quotes, writing blog posts, making YouTube videos, whatever it is. All of these different content buckets are pieces that I'm going to be using to make my content. I'm going to be using this to make my, interesting. There we go. Sorry about that. My video just decided to do things. Anyway, I'm going to be producing all of these different pieces and parts, and that is content. The content buckets are my subjects. So one of the things that is kind of necessary and will help you feel less overwhelmed is if you decide what content buckets you are going to use on your social media accounts. Now, for me, my content buckets are neurodivergence, because I'm neurodivergent and I talk about it a lot. I talk about disability and my experiences with Ehlers-Danlos and dealing with other situations related to disability. I'm going to be talking about generic writing advice, writing 101, how to do characters, the kinds of stuff that you've heard me do a lot of workshops about, like in this group. I do pretty frequently, that kind of thing. Then we're going to have the bucket that is specifically publishing things, where I'm talking about the specifics of how to publish, things like formatting your books, how to work with editors, all sorts of things like that. That's one of my content buckets. And then I'm going to be talking for at least a little while about my conference that's coming up in January. And then I have my personal writing journey, where I'm going to be discussing elements of my stories, maybe talking about any anecdotes that I have about writing, that, like, things that I've gone through and experienced, things like that I'm working on putting together for authors. And so I have probably about 5 content buckets. I think that was 5, maybe 6. But those content buckets are the subjects about which I'm going to be writing. And that is where all of this is going to be coming from. So the content buckets are things that I can go to and be like, all right, I need to make a video right now, and I don't know what to make a video about. Well, I'm going to make that video about, let's say I'm going to just go to my writing bucket. Okay, so I'm going to come up with a bunch of ideas for concepts that I can just toss in that writing bucket. So what I did is I went into OneNote, which I'm using a lot now that I have a tablet that lets me be able to do handwriting on my computer, which is great. But I went into OneNote and I wrote down each of the content buckets, the names of the things. So I put down writing content, I put down publishing, I put down neurodivergence, disability, all the different pieces. And then I came up with a bunch of ideas for each one. So these are all of the various pieces and parts. Like I came up with basically the names of posts and just wrote them in the columns. And I'm going to keep doing that. And then if I don't have a week where I'm like, yes, I need to write about this thing because it's important, germane, maybe it happened to me this week, maybe it's something a client was dealing with this week, and it's like, yeah, I need to write about this. I can go into those content buckets, grab a thing and be like, okay, I'm going to write a blog post about this thing. And that provides me the ability to kind of take some of the sting of trying to deal with what the crap am I going to write out of my experience, because that is one of the really big problems I have is what the crap am I going to write? Like, what am I supposed to write this week? And that endless hamster wheel of, okay, well, I have to write a blog post this week. I don't know what I'm going to write it about, but I have to write one. And then staring at my screen for 3 hours because I would much rather be working on my novel than I would be writing a blog post. And that is, of course, a problem we all have because most of us writers, we'd rather be writing our stories rather than writing content from marketing because that's not super exciting. Let's see. So Fee, to answer your statement there, content is a common language term. I'm talking about it. So yeah, the way I'm using it is content is whatever you are putting out on your official channels, whether it is a blog, whether it is your YouTube channel if you have one, your Facebook, your Twitter, your TikTok, and how to use those various things. Now, TikTok and some of the other things, they all have specific niches, like in TikTok and Reels, you want to think about maybe trying to grab some trending sounds and using those. I had a video go viral yesterday, day before, because I used a trending sound and put some text with it, and people are having a lot of fun with it. It was a funny TikTok video that I grabbed. And I've had videos go viral that weren't using trending sounds, to be clear. I oftentimes don't use anything except me talking. I might use music as kind of a background because I feel like it adds something to the video, but that's more of a video production end of things than it is a specific marketing thing. But if you can grab some of the trends off of whatever social media app is your primary outlet, go for it. And those can be kind of fun. But yes, I know content is really generic and oh no, it's fine. I don't feel like you're picking on me. You're calling out something that you are seeing in the community at large and bringing up something that you feel about. I don't take that personally. That's okay. Me discussing it is me responding to you. I'm not mad or anything. Like, it takes more than that to upset me. But being clear about how I'm using the term is, like, I'm neurodivergent. I'm used to being misunderstood, so I like to be specific about how I'm using a phrase. I also get that from editing because word choice is really important. And in this case, word choice, as you demonstrated here, matters, right? It's not just random. It actually does have importance. So content can be used as just a really generic garbage term that means absolutely nothing. And a lot of the times it is, and people will try and like come up with the idea of content and treat all content as equal, all content is the same, but really it's not. Let's see, Watsy. Yes, definitely you can use different promotional styles on different avenues. There's also something called the 80-20 rule, where 80% of your content should be interesting or informative or helpful or funny or entertaining. It should be some way like engaging to your audience. And then 20% of your content should be actually trying to sell them something. So putting this into practice, if I'm, it's a slightly rougher number, but if I'm saying making 3 videos a day on TikTok, 1 video would be a promotion video and the other 2 would be interesting content or fun or informative or somehow useful to my audience. So whether it's like 1 in 3, 80-20, the basic foundation of that is you want the vast majority of what you put in public as interactions on your author site to be things that your readers, your audience want to know. And then sprinkle in, by the way, I've got a book release, here we go. Because that's one of the big things, and that actually does dovetail into the content creation thing, because so many authors use their social media as nothing but a tool to advertise. Now, marketing and advertising are actually different things, and I do want to bring that up because marketing and advertising they're related, but they aren't identical. Marketing is the whole shebang. It's relationships, it's advertising, it's events, it's your cover design, it's your blurb, it's copywriting, it's all kinds of stuff, where advertising is very specifically buy my product. And that is a demonstration of the 2 different kinds, there are 2 different kinds of things here. Marketing is holistic. It looks at all of the different pieces. And there are many different kinds of marketing and many different kinds of advertising for different products, different venues, different people, different times. And they are, again, they're similar, but they're not the same. And you're entirely correct that you want to have a good blend of things that will make your audience want to spend time on your channel, and letting people know, hey, by the way, if you like what I do have some stuff you can buy. That is a very effective means of marketing, because what you're doing is you're giving people something that they want. So when people come to my TikTok, they come to me for writing advice. They come to me to hear me talk about neurodivergence. They come to me to hear me talk about trends in the writing world. Like, community building is really, really important, and that is one of the foundations of your marketing. And just like people come to me here, like you're all here right now to hear me talk, and out of creating this community, I have gotten editing contracts from people with whom I've developed a relationship because I'm doing this, where I get up in front of all of you, give you a bunch of advice for free. And yeah, cute animal drawings can count as marketing because they are part of your brand. You are writing an animal story. You're writing a novel about that. And as such, you drawing scenes from your novel counts as marketing. You drawing characters, or even if it's not just a character from your novel, drawing things that are related to what you write is absolutely marketing. Just like me drawing fantasy maps is marketing, even if it's not just marketing for the fact that I take commissions for fantasy maps. Let's see, content buckets. Yeah, so the thing about content buckets, circling back, because my ADHD is really exciting today, content buckets are going to be the things that you can draw from, and it also means that your content's going to be focused. So deciding what buckets you have on your marketing channels means that you are going to be choosing which of the various pieces and which of the various subjects you want to share with the world. And I've talked about before how one of the really things, people hire me for stuff, wow. One of the things that needs to happen with marketing is you need to have a focus. There needs to be an actual focus in your marketing, because if you're kind of just making things that are all over the place and not really having a theme to your public facing stuff, it's going to be a problem. Because if I can't go to, let's take a look at somebody's author page, right? If I go onto their author website, and there's no hint about what genres they write in, and I have to do a bunch of digging to find out if they write something that I'm even interested in, that's a problem. Your content buckets should reflect, in some regards, your writing. So, Lead making cute animal drawings is related to his writing because that's what he writes about. Me doing fantasy maps, well, I am a fantasy author. You take cat pictures. I don't know what you're writing about, but if you're including cat pictures as part of your brand, excellent. The thing is you're choosing these pieces intentionally, and you're going to be taking these pieces and building your content out of them. It doesn't all have to be about what you write. Like, I don't write about neurodivergence. It's not one of the things that really comes up in most of my books. Like, there are neurodivergent characters in my series, but it's not the thing I write about. My books are not about that. However, it is important to me. Same thing with disability. I have disabled characters in my books, but me as a human being, I am disabled. And that experience is, well, very important to me and shapes a lot of how I interact with the world. So me discussing the experience of being disabled or things relative to being disabled is important. And that is one of the reasons why I consider that one of my content buckets, because it is one of the things that is deeply important to me. Your content buckets can be things that are very important to you, but aren't things that you're planning on writing your book series about. I've seen authors who post passionately about hiking, taking hiking photos, talking about trips they've gone on, all this other stuff, and that's amazing. And it allows people to connect with you as a human being. And in our current world of trying to put all the pieces together, and in our current world of trying to negotiate social media and how we're going to relate to people and how marketing is changing, it has come to light that what people really want is to get to know you, who you are, what you think, what you're into, because they like that personal connection with their celebrities and or public figures. And while maybe none of us have sold enough books yet to be celebrities, we're looking to be public figures. Being an author means being a public figure if you're going to publish books. Gone are the days where the author is nothing but a picture in the back of the book with a very short bio that you know nothing about them. Those days are over. And we are public figures at this point. And in order to market ourselves, we do have to have some measure of ourselves out there and in public. And the content buckets means you choose what of yourself you want to share. Now, I have a lot of things that I do and I'm interested in that I don't really share on social media that much because it's not one of those buckets. Now, I might take cute pictures of my cats. I mean, there's never a bad time for cat pictures. I don't think there's a wrong situation for kitty pictures. And showing pictures of your pets, people love pets. People love to see other people's animals. Like, even if it's not a celebrity, I love pictures of people's dogs and cats. Like, it makes me happy to see cute fluffy things on my screen because, that makes me happy. And people love that sort of thing. So yes, you don't have to stick exclusively to the content buckets, but having those buckets allows you to generate content easily. Because if you go to be like, okay, today I need to plan my work for the week. I need to plan my marketing for the week. And so what am I going to write about this week? And if I'm like, okay, so here are the topics I write about. Eeny, meeny, miny, this one. I can roll a die if I wanted to and show off my extra nerdiness. I mean, I don't talk about D&D a lot on my social media, but it is one of those things that I don't hide about myself, that I am a giant nerd and definitely play D&D. I mean, I'm working for a company who's producing a tabletop game, so that should tell you everything you need to know. But I don't really write about gaming as one of my major content buckets. I just post about it occasionally, so that's kind of an on and off again sort of thing. But my big ones, like your content buckets, are going to be the things that you majorly talk about the majority of the time. So choosing those buckets, think of things that really make you happy. Like, what do you really like talking about, and how can you tie that into your writing? Is it maybe somebody talking about LGBTQ rights because that's really important to them and they write that kind of fiction? Is it talking about science because you write science in your books, or because, in your case, weird rodent facts? You know what? That works for you because not only that, you're a scientist, you've studied these things, and it shapes what you're writing. I know somebody who raises bugs. He raises insects, and he shares photos of the insects. He works at one of the zoos in the insectarium, I think they're called, taking care of the bugs. And that's his big thing, and he loves sharing that. He's not an author, but if he was, that would be cool. So hearing people talk about all of these things is, you can just grab something you're passionate about. Is it a terrarium? I thought it's because some of them are in water. Like the insectarium, I thought was like just the general, like, here's where all the bugs live. Terrarium is like the specific tank. I could be wrong, but I think so. But spend some time with yourself and think about what do you like to talk about? What makes you happy? If you're neurodivergent, the answer is going to be grab some of your special interests and stick them in the content buckets, because it's not going to be a lot of work for you to generate an awful lot of content about your special interests. I know it's not difficult for me. So, because writing is one of my special interests. That's why I talk about it pretty much 24/7. In case nobody here had figured it out and noticed. Yeah, my husband just nodded and like, yes, you do in the background. And it's absolutely true. So if that's one of your things, awesome. Make it one of your things. And those content buckets are going to be easy. Like, just think about the things that make you happy. What do you do? And of course, with that, include the content bucket of your writing journey. Whether you're giving writing advice like I do, like a lot of people aren't comfortable or don't feel in a position to be giving writing advice, and that's not their target market. Like, a lot of authors don't give writing advice. I do, because I'm a publisher and an editor, in addition to being an author. I am more than just merely an author. I am also a giant pain in the ass. Being that person, me giving writing advice is also me marketing to authors to, hey, here are services that I sell. You can hire me to work with you. I do book coaching. I do editing. I do formatting. And all of this information I share about these subjects comes from 15 years now? Gosh. Yeah, 15 years of industry experience. And I'm sharing that industry experience with people because I want them to succeed, but also because I would like them to hire me to help them with these things. Like, I would like people to hire me to edit their books. If they don't, I'm not going to hold it against them too much. But at the same time, I'm in this to also encourage people and get my name out there. I've gotten several editing contracts off of TikTok now because people have listened to my content. They've liked what I had to say about writing. They've really liked me and found that they feel good talking to me as a person. And then they lean into that and decide, well, this is somebody I could work with, and they contact me, which is great. One of the things about the content buckets is they're also reusable across platforms. So I don't have a separate content bucket for TikTok than I do for my blog or my newsletter. I can go back to those things because it's a deep well, all right? My willingness to nerd out about the craft of writing is a deep, dark well. That's just, it's one of those, cave oceans that nobody's really sure how deep it goes, and anyone who tries getting to the bottom of it usually dies. It's that. My willingness to nerd out about writing is that. So it doesn't require a great deal of effort on my part. But I can talk about writing on my TikTok. I can make images about writing and take quotes that I have said from my blog and put them on Instagram. Or I can repurpose my TikTok content and put it in Instagram Reels, depending on how I make my TikTok content. Like, all of these things are multi-purpose. So each of the platforms does have a unique approach to marketing. And your audience will be more on one platform than another. That is a thing. And you will also, as a person, vastly prefer certain platforms to other platforms. Like, for myself, I hate Twitter. Absolutely loathe it. I cannot stand Twitter. And that's largely because trying to find anything or read anything, like, it's too short. It causes my ADHD to go haywire. It doesn't allow me to get into any depth with anything. And it's drinking from a fire hose. It's really difficult for me. I don't like Twitter. I use it, but I don't like it. The platform that I have landed on that I enjoy the most is actually TikTok. I really love TikTok. I don't really like Instagram so much. And my target audience is probably on TikTok. They are probably also on Facebook, so I occasionally post things to Facebook. Not that often, but I do. And so it's all about knowing where the demographic you're trying to reach hangs out, but also what platform makes you happy. Where are you the most comfortable? Are you the most comfortable sharing videos of yourself on TikTok? Does that make you happy? Does the idea of making a bunch of short form videos and using fun sounds to make silly videos, or even having more serious conversations on video, excite you? Or does the idea of doing long form video for, like, YouTube, where you just sit in front of a camera and talk about a subject? Does that excite you? Or do you prefer Twitter, where you can hammer something out in, 250 characters now? 280 characters, and just pop that out into the world every so often with some hashtags? Does that excite you? Does Facebook excite you? And if none of the social media excites you, you're going to have to figure out which you hate the least and go with that one, because yes, social media can be a nightmare. But each of those things, each of those platforms does look for something a little different when it comes to content, like the formatting of your images. Instagram requires square images specifically in specific ratios, whereas Twitter wants slightly different shapes, whereas Facebook wants slightly different shapes. Now, I generally will just format all of my images to be Instagram, and all the other ones are fine with it because a square is a square is a square. But Instagram is like, if it's not square, I hate it. I will not accept this. Sort of like how your videos for TikTok are all going to have to be vertical, because if you do them horizontal, you have just this little bar across the screen, and you can't see anything. So knowing which of the platforms is going to be your focus, you can kind of zero in on that. But at the same time, across all of my platforms, I'm talking about writing. I'm not doing anything but talking about writing. Or my content buckets for the most part. Like, I also will share pictures of my cats. I'll share photos of new dice I get, because I am a dice gremlin, and getting dice. Like, if I ever got to the point where I was big enough that fans started sending me dice, I would lose my mind and be very happy. The dice goblin is satisfied. But all of these different platforms, the content buckets, it's evergreen. It's multi-purpose. It is never going to be something you can't use on all of your platforms. What I write about in my blog post this week is what I'm going to be making videos about on TikTok, is what I'm going to be making posts about on Instagram and Twitter. And it's all going to be driving people into my newsletter, because if I can get people into my newsletter and my blog, I have them, and it gets them off of social media and into my personal ecosystem. Which is, of course, the goal, is I would much rather have people signed up for my newsletter and getting me content there. And also, all of these different platforms and this content you're creating is stuff that you can stick in your newsletter. Because I can be like, hey, you want to see a funny video I made this week? Here's a link. And send somebody over to my TikTok channel, and I might get them to follow me there. Or here's a blog post I wrote this week about Flibberty Gibbets. That's the word that came out. That's where I am today, okay? I'm at Flibberty Gibbets. I'm halfway through this and my brain is shutting down because I'm cold. It is very cold in my house right now, and I can't feel my hands anymore because I have Raynaud's, and they're ice. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Angel. I appreciate it. So anybody who's watching this on YouTube later, you're going to see the fact that I have a blanket over my lap and I'm wearing fuzzy jammy pants. Now you know why. And if my hands look like they're a weird color, it's because they are. I'm just cold. Moving away from content buckets. So how do you decide what you want to create? Creating things shouldn't feel like pulling teeth. And it shouldn't feel like torture. If creating things to share on your various different, whatever outlets you're using, feels like torture, you're probably either not writing about something you're passionate about, don't have a clear vision of what you want to say, are intimidated by all of this, or it's a function of time, because I don't know about all of you, but life is pretty busy. You know, we have chores, a lot of us have work, we might have kids, we have other hobbies, or we're masochists. Yeah, we might be masochists. How you doing? You naughty thing. So we could be masochists, but it can be overwhelming, because I know for me, one of the reasons why I don't post regularly across most of my social media is because it can feel very overwhelming. And I know for me also, as a neurodivergent, I don't people very well a lot of the time. Like, I have a persona that I wear when I'm interacting with people outside of like my personal bubble, and that persona is excellent at public speaking. They are amazing at dealing with people. They can be the center of attention at a party and be fine with it. They can tell jokes, they can do whatever they need to do. But that persona is just a persona. It's not, I mean, it's me, but it's a shined up and, buffed, and I'm playing myself on TV kind of character, whereas the actual me would much rather be hiding in the corner with my knitting rather than actually talking to people. Because when I'm at a party for just social reasons, I'm typically the person in the corner patting the cat. That is who I am. But when I'm in public, like right now, having this talk, I can employ certain skills that I have developed over time and put on a persona that is far more confident than I usually feel. And that kind of thing can help too. If you're creating a profile, you can create a persona. This is especially effective for neurodivergent people. I know a lot of us have this character who is us, but is also not us, and is far more socially capable than we are, and we can play that character without exposing the soft, squishy underbelly of ourselves. So think about that. I've also seen author accounts that are managed by like an author's character, which can be an awful lot of fun. There is a creator on TikTok, I think he calls himself the Eldritch Author, where he is a 5e content creator. He's like, when I say content creator, he makes adventures and stuff. Yes, I love him. And I think he writes books. In fact, I'm pretty darn sure he writes books. And he has this character who he's usually playing in most of his TikTok videos, who is this like Count Dracula dude who runs this like infernal carnival. And he is a lot of fun. He is so much fun. But it's a persona, and his social media is mostly that persona. He's pretending to be that person. It's cosplay. He'll occasionally come on in like sweatpants and a shirt and talk like just to the camera, but that doesn't happen very often. He's usually pretending to be this character. So if you're wanting to do something like that, feel free to explore it if that helps you feel more comfortable. If you would like to share other things, like I regularly share my art. People really like to watch me draw maps, so I draw process pieces and show my maps off on social media. That's a thing I do a lot. But look, if it feels like you're pulling teeth to come up with content, if it really just like it's exhausting and you're stressed out about it, re-examine your content buckets. Re-examine where you're pulling your content from. And also re-examine your posting schedule. For a lot of people, they think, okay, I have to post on TikTok 3 times a day. I need to post on Instagram 3 times a day. I need to be on Twitter. I need to negotiate this Facebook post. I need to write a blog for this week, and also I have a newsletter every week. And then your brain is just eventually going to just fry itself because you're trying to do all of this marketing work at once, and you're trying to do it like all the time, and then you're not going to be writing. And I'm sure that's a fear that everybody has, and an experience a lot of authors deal with, because most of us would rather be writing. I would rather be writing than most things, unless it's playing video games, in which case I also would like to play video games, thank you. But that thing that I like, the writing aspect of things is my rewarding time. My marketing can be a lot. It can be really tiring, it can be really stressful, and it can be like pulling teeth sometimes. But when I go back to my content buckets and think about, okay, what do I want to write a blog about this week? And go through in my head, okay, what are interactions I've had with some authors? My perfection being the death of creativity post that I'm putting up tomorrow is born out of a conversation that I had in comments on TikTok and out of conversations I've had with folks here. There are people who just never actually get started writing because they are so stressed out and afraid of the fact that their first draft isn't perfect that they can't even start writing because it's crap. Well, of course your first draft is crap. Of course it is. That's fine. But that particular content bucket, that it fits into one of my content buckets, but it came to me out of a conversation I had. And while I'm running around doing errands, living life, having these conversations with people on social media, because I've been building a community for several years, all of those conversations can give me like, oh, I had a conversation this week about how can authors write characters who have different life experiences than they do without being disrespectful. I had that conversation this week. That seems like a blog I could write. And my blogs, I mean, I'm right now, since I'm using them to make YouTube videos out of, I'm shooting for 1,000 to 1,600 words. Which I know for some of you sounds like an awful lot, but for me, that's not very much. Like 1,000 words is not a lot for me. So write whatever length of time, but for when I was looking at how long it takes you to read words and how many words should a speech that is X number of minutes long be, 1,600 words is about 8 to 10 minutes, which is apparently one of the peak numbers you want to hit in a YouTube video. You don't want to go too much over that. You don't want to go too much under that, but about 10 minutes is roughly where people want to be. So I'm trying to hit that, and that gives me a good target for my blog. And in that YouTube video, about 10 minutes, that's not too bad. It'll take me a while to film and then cut into pieces. Cut my film into pieces. Sorry, the neurodivergence is strong today. And it's going to be a reasonable chunk of time for me to get all this stuff done. If that sounds like an awful lot, find out what amount of time you want to devote to this a week. And you can't say nothing, because if you want to say nothing, it's not going to work if you want to be a professional. If you're writing for yourself, if you're writing for pleasure, if you're writing because you want to share fanfic with people, you don't need to worry about marketing. Like, this is for people who are looking to make money off of their writing and become public figures, and who want to be, you know, relatively big, or as big as we can get. So there's no pressure on people who are writing just for funsies. That's a fair and reasonable thing. And if that's you, awesome. There's nothing wrong with that. It is not a waste of time. It is a worthwhile endeavor. Art for art's sake is obviously something I'm a big fan of. However, with marketing, you can't be like, I want to market 0 hours a week, please and thank you, and still sell books. You can't do that. It doesn't work that way. But you could take 2 to 3 hours, either all in one chunk or across a week, to sit down and make plans. Like for me, I use a content calendar to plan out my content for the month. And that way I can be like, okay, these are the holidays that happen this month. And I can make some social media posts in my Canva account and schedule them so I don't have to think about them at all. And they'll just go out when I schedule them to, and I don't need to worry about it at all after that point, which is excellent, because my brain does not keep that kind of thing in. It doesn't keep my brain doesn't keep anything, I guess. I think it just deleted that. And yes, contrary to popular belief, artists cannot buy food with exposure. No, we can't. Marketing generates sales from which we get money, from which we buy the food. Exposure is useful, but it's not going to be the thing. So don't. You're looking to connect with people. That is what the goal of all this marketing stuff is you're trying to connect with things. So content creation, think about who your audience is. And also think about yourself. Now, your audience might look an awful lot like you. Like the people who I'm writing to with my novel series, and my husband and I are writing to with our novel series, are people who look, sound, and are remarkably like myself, because I'm writing what I would enjoy. I'm writing to that person. And since I am Rurik, that is an entirely different thing. But since I am writing to people who look an awful lot like me, neurodivergent, LGBTQ, or at least LGBTQ positive, people who are who don't hate religion. Now, I'm religious, but I'm writing for people who don't hate religion, because my books contain things, about God and so on, not because they're religious, but it contains conversations about that, like Lucifer and Supernatural deals with angels and demons and deities. So it's religious on that level, it's not a Christian book series. But I'm marketing to people who look and sound an awful lot like me. And so I think about, what kind of content do those people like? Well, if I'm marketing to myself, what do I like? Well, I like funny videos sometimes. I really enjoy TikTok. I really like the format. I really like the content, the community. I love TikTok. I like blog posts because I like getting in people's heads and reading more in depth. I do like videos, but sometimes I just want to read the thing. Like when I'm looking up for tech support, or if I'm having problems of some kind, or if I'm trying to understand something, 98% of the time, I would much rather read a blog post or a forum post over watching a video that may or may not be made very well. It's like, hello, and now we're going to open the software, and we're going to click this menu. And from this menu, we're going to click over to this other menu. And then we're going to open, it's like, please, just let me read it. I could read it at like 500 times the speed that this person is talking, and I'm now mad. So I don't really like that kind of thing. So obviously I'm not going to do that kind of content. And so I think about these are the things that, like, what do I connect with? Well, I connect with these things. And my audience, since they look and sound and are probably an awful lot like me, they probably are into D&D. They might be neurodivergent, because a lot of neurodivergent people are hyperlexic, which means we read like, we read a lot. And so hyperlexia is a really common thing, and a lot of neurodivergents are hyperlexic. So communicating with people about that. Disability, it comes up in my books, and it is really important to me. It may or may not be important to my target audience, but it is important to me. And disability and representation for people with disabilities is of significant importance to me. So whether or not my target audience is necessarily looking for that, it's something that I want to share. So that's in there. My personal experiences as a writer and talking about my writing journey, well, I like reading about my favorite authors and how they get to certain points and how they do certain things and how they write certain pieces and so on. Like, I really enjoy that kind of thing. And because it makes me feel connected. Like, I forget who it was. There was a major author not too long ago, fantasy author, really big, who wrote a blog post saying, I've been trying to write the last book in this series for like 5 years, and every time I try and write it, it comes out garbage. And every time I try and write it, it's not what I want to read. And every time I write it, it just upsets me. So I'm trying other projects. And it was a very frank conversation about how sometimes beating your head against the wall doesn't net good results, and how sometimes you might just not be ready to write that project right now. And that really connected with me as a human being, because I have that experience, and knowing that one of the people who I aspire to be when I grow up, so to speak, is having the same experience I am, it really matters. And it really made me feel good, and made a lot of authors feel good to know, and writers just in general know, that they are not alone in that experience. I should write a horny squirrel story. You know what? I could write a horny squirrel story, but I won't. That's your thing. I'm not going to step in your toes. That just generated a mental image that I didn't want. Okay. So think about the things that really excite you. And the content flow that I mentioned toward the beginning of the video, not all of you are here for, but what I'm working towards is write the blog post about, 1,000 words to about 1,600. Take that blog post and make it into a YouTube video. I'm not going to read the blog post one for one, but I'm going to use it as a structural outline for me to speak it. Because if I'm reading it, I'm not going to be looking at the camera. I'm going to be reading, and me just sitting in front of the camera reading a blog post would not be very engaging content. And I can't memorize very well, so I'm going to use it as an outline. And from that YouTube video, I'm going to pull out clips that I'm going to create in my video editing software, and get ready to post those up on TikTok and on Instagram as Reels, and I can post videos on other platforms. And from the blog, I can pull quotes to make images to put on Instagram, and all of that stuff I'm going to be using to put into my newsletter. And I can link to these things, I can share these things. All of that is useful and valuable. And it means that I need to write the content once. I need to film the content once. And then I have to do the other pieces. If you don't know how to video edit and don't know how to chop things up, that could be really intimidating. I do, so it's not intimidating to me. But creating a flow for yourself where you only need to do the bulk of the mental work once is going to save you so much time and energy. And it's going to free up your time. It's going to free you up to have space for writing, have space for other things, and it'll give you the capacity to do those things. And it might also help take some of the anxiety out of the marketing end of things. And it might help you feel more comfortable and more confident in your professional space. And this kind of advice also works for other creatives. It doesn't have to be just for authors. If you're an artist, taking your art and posting it in multiple places, and you could do a video of you, time lapse of you painting the thing, because a lot of people show time lapse videos on YouTube of them painting a thing. Or you could stream it, record the stream, then put that up on YouTube, then share the finished piece in various different places. You could use that same technique to apply to a completely different sphere of art and marketing. And that is sort of one of the reasons I liked this technique, is because it is so general and so broad. Content buckets are not a thing specific to authors. They are, in fact, a thing that is used a lot of the time in corporate marketing. So if you see the Wendy's Twitter page, right, they are going to be posting about mostly the same thing, mostly all the time. And they have created a very specific tone for that page where it's very snarky. And they've created kind of a character who is that person. Now, I'm willing to bet you money that they have more than one person managing that Twitter account. In fact, I would be flabbergasted if they didn't have more than one person managing that Twitter account. And so they take that person and use that as a method of... they take that persona and use it as a method of generating content from. And you can learn things from that. So it's not... the idea of content buckets and all of this stuff isn't exclusive to us. And we can look at other places in the ecosystem where it actually is applied and it works really well. So that is kind of where I'm at for content creation, is try and see what you can do to create the bulk, like do the bulk of the content creation once, and then take that and turn it into multiple different pieces. I could also take the audio from one of these conversations here, right? The only downside to not having video with this would be people ask questions in the chat, which is one of the reasons why I read it out loud. Now, most of the audio platforms, most of the podcast platforms, in order to upload an hour's worth of audio, you have to pay for that. So that is a thing. I could easily just chop up pieces and create that. But for my YouTube channel, my plan is actually to take the audio from my YouTube channel and put that up onto like Spotify and create a playlist for myself. So again, I've done the work once, I've done the recording once, and the sound is going to be engineered once. The video is going to be engineered once, and ta-da. All right, thank you. Good to know that I am allowed to write about horny squirrels. Horny squirrels. My husband just got very confused when I said that out loud, and that's a sentence he never thought that he'd hear me say. And now
I'm not surprised.
And yet he's not surprised. So that is more or less, yeah, that is more or less where we are, where I'm going to wrap this up. To those of you watching on YouTube, that was me giving my husband the stink eye for opening a soda off screen and being loud. Sometimes the husbands need strangling. Anyway, does anybody have any questions for me in our last few minutes here? Is there anything I haven't covered that you would like me to cover?
Why are you so pretty?
Shush. Shush, Chatty Monkey.
Watch her blush.
Yeah, we can wrap it up with horny squirrels, yeah. Just end it on that note of horny squirrels. Yep, as usual, as is on brand for this channel and for me, we're going to just wrap it up with horny squirrels. All right. On that note, I hope everybody has a good week. Hopefully I will be back next week. I think I'm past the worst of my pain problems, I hope. And maybe I'll be able to be more regular with this. And I think what's probably going to end up happening is I'm going to be looping this into my content creation cycle. So my lecture every week is going to be about what I write my blog post about on Mondays. So I can plan it in advance, talk to you, do my blog post. You see how it all comes together. It's all coming together, the plan. Jay, in closing, somebody asked, what is your favorite rodent?
Favorite rodent?
Yep, your favorite rodent.
ROUSs?
He said ROUSs, which you might not get, lead. It is from The Princess Bride. It's from a movie. So his favorite rodent is ROUSs. Yep. So there you go. You now have that knowledge. All right. Have a good night, everybody. I hope you have... I hope this was worthwhile for you, and we shall leave on the note of rodentia.